Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Vacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Sadarane Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shigro Shiyuta Parakamalam Shigrom Vaishnavam Scha Shirupam Sagarjatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakans Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Dhruvyaschа Kripa Sindhuvyevacha Patidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So what was the verse we read yesterday? Oh, don't look at it.
5 text 57.
Yeah, close the books.
Close the book.
Yeah, close the book.
Close the book, yes.
Close the book.
King used here.
Close the book, Chris.
We thought since might be up for another game of Kalachanchi Squares.
So, close your eyes. Also, try and visualize. We're in the 7th canto. Who is the 7th canto about? Prahlad Maharaj. So, obviously, the verse is going to have something to do with Prahlad Maharaj. So, what did the verse have to do with Prahlad Maharaj?
Yesterday's verse?
Yeah, yesterday's verse.
When he sat down and all the children sat around and listened, watched him with fixed eyes, heard him.
Yeah. So let's start from the beginning, though. Who is speaking? Narada Muni. And who is he speaking to? And what was he telling you to see, Maharaj?
Surrounded.
That's the second verse.
They were very affectionate and respectful to Prahlad.
Yeah, that's the first one. Why?
He was a great devotee.
That's the last one. Next to the last.
Tender age and not affected by the instructions and actions of the teachers who are condemned, who are in the condemned duality of material.
Condemned duality and bodily
attachment.
comfort. So, King Yudhisthira, Narada Muni is saying to King Yudhisthira, my dear king, that all these Prahlad Maharaj, or these boys, because it's talking about the boys, the students of the classmates of Prahlad Maharaj, they were all very affectionate and respectful towards Prahlad Maharaj, because they were not very much influenced, they were of tender age, and they were not very much influenced by their teachers, were all attached to the condemned duality and bodily comfort. So we got the first concept. So, okay, second sentence.
The boys surrounded Prahlad Maharaj, giving up all their toys, and were listening to Prahlad Maharaj.
Sat down.
Sat down and were listening to Prahlad Maharaj with eyes, with their heart and eyes
fixed. And how else were they listening? With great earnestness. Then the next concept.
Though Prahlad Maharaj was born in the family of...
He's actually a exalted devotee. And the next concept. Prahlad Maharaj, what was it? Why was he preaching to his classmates?
He was an exalted devotee, despite being born in a family of teachers.
Yeah, the word is kripaya was used yesterday, and it's translated that he was desiring their welfare. And then the last concept, what did he preach to them?
The futility of the materialistic.
Yeah. So that's good, means we made a little progress. Otherwise, if we go through just like whoever sets up the microphone, they should probably do something practical, like make sure that the microphone actually is usable for the speaker. The book doesn't read. So if the microphone falls down to the book, what is the use of the microphone? Is this microphone being used for anything?
Is it turned on even?
No. Yeah, everything's just a prop. It's like the whole thing's a show. Doesn't really matter whether it works or not. The important thing is it's there. So it looks like it works. You know, just like the speaker is supposed to have a glass of water, but whether he has one or not, it makes no difference because the whole thing's just a show anyhow. But he's going to get one. But at least he should give the speaker a glass of water. Otherwise, if he can't speak, he won't be able to hear anything. That's basically why there's a glass of water there, so he can speak. Eat more easily. So here, if we go through the whole verse, we read it, and the next day we don't remember anything about what we read, then what was the value of reading it? Quite subtle, isn't it? It's stored way back in our memory, and maybe in our next lifetime we'll remember it. Maybe. Or we've had a little familiarity with it, and therefore the next time we read it, it won't seem so strange, as long as we don't read it so far in advance. For instance, next year we came back, and I asked you what were the verses I read last year. Unlikely we'd be able to remember them. Isn't that right? Very unlikely. But even if we could remember them, well, even if I read them again, they'd seem quite foreign. We wouldn't be familiar with them, even though we had actually heard them a year before. But since we've gone over to the next day, it seems a little familiar. We can understand Narada Muni speaking to King Yudhisthira. He says, "My dear King Yudhisthira, that all these children, they were of tender age, they were very affectionate and respectful towards Prahlad Maharaj, and because they were of tender age, therefore, they were not so much affected by the instructions and actions of their teachers who are all attached to the condemned duality and the bodily comfort. Therefore, it doesn't seem so foreign, does it? Because we heard it yesterday. Or if we heard it next week, we'd still probably remember something. But because we heard it again today, therefore it strengthens the memory. Isn't that right? Therefore, after a while, if we keep on hearing it, then we'll be able to see, Narada Muni, and he's speaking to King Yudhisthira. We can see the boys, and we can see their teachers. We can see Prahlad Maharaj, and we can, all these things become more and more accessible. And then if we can visualize it, then we might be able to enter into the mood. To visualize is not one thing, but to actually enter into that mood is much deeper. And then to enter into the mood and actually feel what's going on. Because feeling that's what we're really interested in. Not just seeing, but we're interested in feeling, because our process is bhakti. So the whole Bhagavatam is supposed to have something to do with bhakti. It's not just a movie. Because even movies are trying to invoke emotions and feelings. Isn't that right? They're just not like visual. They're all meant to invoke some kind of emotions. Rasa. So the Bhagavatam, it says, Nigama kalpatura galitam balam sukhamukam drava amyutam pibata bhagavatam rasa alanam mahura mahu rasika bhavika bhavukaha. That we're invited to read the Bhagavatam in a way that we can experience its rasa. That's what disciple succession is supposed to be. Because if a Mayavadi reads the Bhagavatam, you won't get much rasa from it, because he's not in disciple succession. But we're supposed to get the rasa. But what is that rasa? How do we get it? We get it, first of all, by being able to hear it. So if we haven't, how do we know if we heard it? Well, one way of testing it, if we can't remember it, how can we say we've heard it? Isn't that right? If I shout out a number and I say, whoever remembers the number will get all the Mahaprasadam today. So how many devotees, whatever, they'll probably pay attention. What was that number? They'll pay attention to the number. It won't be hard to remember it, because we'll get something beneficial from it. But these verses, we think, well, what is the use of listening? What will I get from it? Nothing, we think. Therefore we don't pay, or we don't really know what we're going to get from it. Therefore we don't pay so much attention. But it's the verse itself that's the reward. It's actually hearing the verse and remembering it. That is the reward. There's instantaneous reward, just like they have these things where you scratch out on a card and you find out if you get any reward or not instantaneously. Usually don't, but sometimes it says you get $5 or something. So it's instantaneous reward as much as we actually pay attention. But because we don't pay attention, we don't get the reward, and therefore we wonder what kind of reward we get if we paid attention. We don't know because we don't pay attention. Therefore, the Bhagavatam is written so we can go over it again, but we don't have time to do that because we have too many other things to do. Because we don't think it's really worthwhile to concentrate so much on these things. We think it's all a story anyhow. But we can realize it's not a story if we actually concentrate on it and get the effect. But that takes some conviction that it's actually worth the time to invest and actually try to learn how to get the effect from it. Therefore, Prabhupada has a sadhana, so every day we're supposed to invest some time. But if at the end of the day we walk away from the class, we don't remember anything, or we haven't realized anything, then we think I just uselessly invested my time. That's why there's so few devotees here, compared to how many people are listed in the community. You have a book this thick of people in the community. Of course, some of them work, but I'm sure if we were handing out $100 bills here, there'd be a few more people coming here. But what's being delivered is much more valuable than just $100 bills. It's actually, this has permanent value. But the first thing we should do is, if we're actually heard, if we've actually listened, and if we haven't, then we should try to actually hear until we do listen. Until we actually listen enough that we can at least repeat what we heard, but that's not the end of it. It's not like now I can repeat what I heard, therefore I'm finished. No, that's meaningless too. Just repeat, it's not completely meaningless because it's transcendental. There's some hope for the future. But then we should actually understand what we heard. And how do we know if how do we know if we heard? Because we can repeat. And how do we know if we understood what we're repeating? Is because we can visualize it. And how do we know that we've actually understood it correct? Not only we can visualize it and see what's going on, but we can actually ultimately feel it and experience it. And not only that, but then we can apply it within our lives and get the same mood and the same benefit. We can actually learn from it, experience and learn from it. So unless we come to the platform of listening, because it says we're supposed to listen with rapt attention, but what does that mean? It means we should be able to remember it, we should be able to visualize it, we should be able to experience it, we should be able to apply it within our life. Then we're getting the benefit of hearing the Bhagavatam. But if we can't visualize it, then we have to keep on, at least we have to come to that platform, remembering it and visualizing it. And then there's some possibility of beginning to feel it and experience it and properly understand it. And then we actually can apply it. And then we'll get the full benefit from it. Is that clear? What did I just say?
I said if we remember what's in these books, then we can practice them and get the benefit.
Applying to our lives.
Well, we have to listen first. We have to listen. And then we can start visualizing it. And then start understanding it. It is understanding. And then you can start learning and applying it in your life.
Yeah, something like that. First, again, that's why it's good to challenge ourselves to actually see whether or not we've actually heard. Otherwise, we think we've heard, but actually we haven't really heard. We think, yeah, I just heard that, it makes a lot of sense. And then 5 minutes later you ask, I can't remember a thing, because we haven't really heard exactly. But first we should try to listen. That means that we have to, just like these children, their hearts were into listening to Prahlad Maharaj. And it says their eyes also. Their eyes weren't wandering, because if our eyes wander, our attention wanders. But their hearts, they were actually giving their hearts to Prahlad Maharaj, which means they had some faith in him. Why would you give your heart to someone, open yourself up to someone's instructions, really open yourself up, unless you have faith that by following the process that I just outlined, we get the benefit. But if I don't even know what the process is of listening, what I'm expecting to get from it, then where is there any question of having it, even if I have so-called faith, but if I don't know what I'm supposed to get from the person, from the process of hearing, then my faith is going to be pretty limited. My experience, because I may think, oh, this person, he has something valuable to say, but if I don't know how to even apply the process of hearing to what they're saying, then I won't get much benefit from it, no matter how much exalted they are, or no matter how much so-called faith I have in them. So I have to know what I'm supposed to get from the process of hearing. So the first thing we're supposed to get, we're supposed to remember what we heard. But most of us will go around saying, well, I can't remember very much. All right, my memory's not very good. Just like there was one boy, he was failing in school because they were claiming his memory wasn't very good. But he knew every single baseball player in both leagues, what their batting average was from the last 5 years. So that's an incredible feat for someone to do that. So he had a fantastic memory. He was just applying it in the wrong way, that's all. Similarly, because unless we have some interest in the subject matter, we won't listen. And what's the proof we don't listen? We don't remember what we just heard. And why don't we really listen very much? Because we're not getting the fruit, the ripened fruit of what we're hearing. That is, we're not in ecstasy when we hear it. Which is, we'll claim, well, that's all right. Why should I be in ecstasy? I'm a neophyte. I'm a professional neophyte. I'm not supposed to get an effect, because otherwise, if I got the effect of hearing, then I become, elevated, and then I get puffed up and fall down anyhow. So better to stay a humble neophyte than make too much advancement and get proud, become proud. So basically speaking, many times Maya has convinced us that we're supposed to be neophytes, so we don't get too proud. But the fact is, we're actually supposed to practice listening, and by listening, we're supposed to be able to remember what we heard. And then by remembering what we heard, which takes practice, for me, I can recite practically the whole Bhagavad Gita, at least the Sanskrit and most of the English, fairly accurately. But why? Is it because I have a fantastic memory? It's because I read it every day. So if you go over it every day, Dharma, Shri Sanjaya Vacha, Dhritarashtra Vacha, Dharma Kshetre, Kuru Kshetre, Samavedi Utsavaha, Mamaka Pandavaishchaiva, Kema Kurvata Sanjaya, Sanjaya Vacha, Drishvatu Pandavanikam, Yudam Duroyo Dinastata, Acharyam Upasangamya, Rajavachanam Abravit, Paishaitam Pandaputranam, Acharya Mahitim Chamum, Yudam Drupada Putrena, Tavasi Shena Dimata, Atra Sura Maheshvasya, Bimarjanas Mayudi, Yudana Vratascha, Drupadascha Maharata, Dristaketus Chekikana, Kasirajas Chavireva, Puruja Kundibojas Cha, Shaibas Cha Narapungavaha, Yudamanus Vikranta, Udamojas Viryavan, Sobhadro Drapudeyas Cha, Saraeva Maharata. So if you do that, you read a chapter in Sanskrit every day for 20 years, you'll probably memorize most of the Bhagavad Gita. Because that's not the perfection, just to memorize something. But it's the beginning at least. We have something to draw on, to think about. Because most of the way we look at things right now, we've memorized our whole. If we're looking around, we're seeing, this is Durasar, this is, Karma Muni. It's memorization. This is a male. Otherwise, it would just, or hombre, or chelavekam, depends what language you're using. So it's all memory. We're all just memorizing. We're seeing things and labeling them. It's a world of names. So we have to put a different thing. We have to add something to our current system of understanding. So that takes practice. So we have to remember by practicing. If we don't remember the first time, it's not like, I couldn't remember it the first time, I give up. It's not worth. No, we got to try it again and again and again till we actually remember it. Something. It's not like just for the brahmacharis that they're supposed to memorize a few verses or like that. It's not the end just to memorize it. The next thing we have to do is trying to visualize it. Visualize it means to see what it practically means. It may be if it says here, Narada Muni. So we can see Narada Muni with his veena. Generally that's how he's depicted. He has a dhoti on, top knot. He's a brahmachari. And he's speaking to King Yudhisthira. We can see the throne. We can, however we want to do it, we can add our own, well maybe it's not our own, but we can decorate the picture. We can paint a picture within our mind. And there's Narada Muni, he's actually speaking. about the sons of the demons and how they're affectionate and respectful to Prahlad Maharaj. Because they're of tender age, and therefore they're not so much influenced by their teachers, who are all of the condemned duality, attached to the condemned duality and bodily comfort. So we should see that, and that's what Narada Muni is telling King Yudhisthira Maharaj. And then we remember it, and then we should try and feel it. Feel the innocence of the children, feel how Narada Muni is paying, glorifying Prahlad Maharaj and even the sons of the demons. Feel how Yudhisthira Maharaj is paying so much attention to what it was being said. It wasn't just like, typing on his computer while Narada Muni was speaking to him. He took it as very important instructions. So then we enter into the mood, what's going on. Then when we get into the next chapter, which I guess is we're on now, Kumar Achara, then we'll actually be anxious to hear these instructions. After all, even if the demons, the sons of the demons, were all giving their hearts and their eyes, looking at Prahlad Maharaj, trying to listen with great eagerness, earnestness, then we should be in that same mood. Not that, I heard this, I know this verse, or they're going to talk about Gurukul, but we already figured out that Gurukul doesn't work in ISKCON. It costs us, so much money, $11 million lawsuit. It's not good for Kali Yuga. Prahlad Maharaj didn't realize what he was talking about when he... Or we followed his advice and it was bad. Bad advice. No, unfortunately, we probably started out in ISKCON with expecting it to be a failure, and we, due to a lack of concern actually, it did turn out to be somewhat of a failure. Not completely, but it wasn't as good as it could be because we didn't pay enough attention to it. Because why? Because the people who were running the Gurukul, people who were sending their children to the Gurukul, the students of the Gurukul, were all products of Kali Yuga because they couldn't hear anything. Even Prabhupada gave instructions, but they didn't really pay very much attention to Prabhupada's instructions because they thought they knew everything, although they didn't know very much. So, there's no loss. We can still pay attention. We can still, if we want to, pay attention to this and more or less try and remember it, try to visualize it, understand it, experience it, and apply it properly, better at least. Therefore, the effect will be better. But again, if we just hear these verses every day, we walk away, those who do come and hear them, we don't remember a thing what was said, we can't even remember what chapter was read, we don't even know who was speaking. Even after hearing it one moment later, we can't even remember exactly what was going on, or anything that was going on. We don't even know who's speaking. We don't know where they were speaking. We don't know anything. Then we walk away and we wonder, should I go to the Bhagavatam class tomorrow or not? Because we didn't get very much from it. Or we think only a few fanatics go. I wonder why they go anyhow. Because they have nothing better to do. They can't earn a living, so they just sit around hearing Bhagavatam. Can't do something valuable like making money, so those who can't do anything else, they just sit around and listen to the Bhagavatam. Fires up the digestion because prasadam follows. So, next one is a long verse. I don't know how much time we have. We have a little. So, Sri Prahlada Vacha. Oh, before you do that, I'm just going to read the verse, the translation, to see how accurate we all were from yesterday. My dear King Yudhisthira, all the children were very much affectionate, respectful to Prahlad Maharaj. Because of their tender age, they were not so polluted by the instructions and actions of their teachers, who were attached to condemned duality and bodily comfort. Thus the boys surrounded Prahlad Maharaj, giving up their playthings, and sat down to hear him. Their hearts and eyes being fixed upon him, they looked at him with great earnestness. Prahlad Maharaj, although born in a demon family, was an exalted devotee and desired their welfare. Thus he began instructing them about the futility of materialistic life. So now we're a little ready for the next. Of course, being ready for the next verse, according to the Bhagavatam, it means we should have remembered and experienced all the other 6.5 cantos that came before this. But anyhow, even if we don't have time to go back to all the 6.5 cantos before this, so we'll go forward anyhow, knowing well that we should try and pay attention, make up for what we've lost so far. Shri Prahlada Uvacha Kamara Acharat Pragyo Dharman Bhagavataniha Durlabha Manusham Janma Tadapya Dhruvam Artadam Shri Prahlada Uvacha Kamaram Acharat Pragyo Dharman Bhagavataniha Durlabha Manusham Janma Tadapyadruvam Artadam. So what does the word Shri mean?
Beautiful.
Yes. Prahlada Uvacha. So Shri Prahlada Uvacha. Prahlad Maharaj said, Kamaram. So what does Kamara mean?
Young. In a tender age of childhood.
It's easy when you have it right before you on a computer. What's the value of that?
I have to know I have to start someplace.
Yeah, but better to close the computer and try and learn how to listen. Because otherwise, we rely too much on the computer, but the computer is not, we have another computer within our brain that we're trying to develop. Especially when we're being tested, but if you just look at the computer, then then you get used to relying on the computer. But at the time of death, the computer won't help you. We have to develop our own brains. So Kamara, what age is Kamara from?
5 years old?
12 to 15.
What's that?
12 to 15.
Up to 5 to
12.
I think it's
5 to 15.
5 to 12.
Are you serious? What comes after Kamara? Poganda, yeah. And what comes after Poganda? Kaishura. And after Kaishura? Yovanam. What's that?
That's the 10.
No. So, Poganda, when does Poganda start?
6. 5 to 6.
Yeah, 5 or 6. So Kamara is from the beginning of life up to around 5, to the end of 5. And then from Poganda goes up until around what time? 10, yeah, around 10. And then after that, Kaishura, to around 15, and then youth. So we have to remember that they're 5 years old. That is, from the beginning of life, meaning from around 5 years old, from the very beginning of education. Usually education starts around 5 or 6 years old. Acharet. So, what's that? Yeah, what are the words we have which are similar to acharet? Acharya, yeah. Acharet, should practice. Pragyo, or here it's pragya, one who is intelligent. So what is the similar word to pragya? What do you see? Anything similar in there? Nothing similar. See any word that in Sanskrit that's similar? That this is made up of? What about gya? What, jnana? Knowledge, yeah. And pra? What does pra mean? Must be something about increasing, right? Something, at least in this sense, something that increases. So pragya means increasing knowledge, intelligence. Dharman. So what does that mean?
Occupational duties.
Yes. Occupational duties. Dharman. Occupational duties. Bhagavatan, which are devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Iha, in this life. Durlabham, what does labha mean?
That is rare.
What's that? No, labha. What does labha mean?
To obtain something.
Yeah, to obtain something, desiring to obtain. Durlabham, rarely attained. Very rarely attained. Durlabham, very rarely attained. Manusham, what does that mean?
Human form.
Yeah, human. Janma, what's the word? What's the translation for janma? Birth. Tat, what does that mean? That. How can you memorize that? Tat means that. What's a good way of memorizing that? Tat means that.
Subtract the H.
Pretty close.
Yeah, you just add an H to the tat and you get that. Simple, isn't it? So that minus H is tat. Api, even. Adruvam. What does dhruva mean? And adruvam? Impermanent, yes. Temporary. Artha, dam. What does that mean?
Has value.
Yeah, value. Full of meaning here it's translated. So artha means value, and dam means full of. So the suffix, then we get full of meaning. So what is pragya mean? What's your name again, Pro? Yeah. Santosh. What does pragya mean?
Increasing knowledge.
Yeah. How is it translated here? Intelligent. One who is intelligent. And what does dharman mean? Yeah.
Occupational duties.
And what does durlabha mean? Rarely obtained. Yeah, okay. So now we're a little bit ready for the translation. Translation. Prahlad Maharaja said, so who's speaking?
Prahlad.
Yeah, so he's preaching to who? And where are they?
Sitting in a circle around him.
Yes, surrounding him. One who is sufficiently intelligent should use the human form of body from the very beginning of life. So what is the Sanskrit for that? Acharat pragyo. In other words, from the tender age of childhood, which is what's the Sanskrit for that? Yes, Kumara. To practice the activities of devotional service, giving up all their engagements. So what's the Sanskrit for that? That's one line there. So what did I just read? What did Prahlad Maharaj tell his schoolmates? No, in translation. What's the first thing he said? This is not just meant to embarrass people. It's actually, we have to do this in order to develop our memories. One who is what? Yeah, one who is sufficiently intelligent, he'd what?
Practice devotional service to the Supreme Personality of God from the tender age of childhood, from the beginning of life.
Yeah. I'll read it again. Prahlad Maharaj said, one who is sufficiently intelligent should use the human form of life from the very beginning of life, or in other words, from the tender age of childhood, giving up all their engagement, to practice the activities of devotional service, giving up all their engagements. So what is there anything in there that says giving up all their engagements? Not really. Yeah. So who can repeat it now? What is Prahlad Maharaj telling his childhood schoolmates? No, not you. You just said it already. Vishwa Bhagavan, without looking at the book. What's that? Prahlad Maharaj said, those who are sufficiently intelligent, what should they do?
Give up all their occupational duties, engage in devotional service.
Yeah, more or less, but he said a few more things in there. Prajapati, Prabhu.
From the very beginning of life, one should give up all other occupational duties and just take up the devotional service.
Yeah, that's true. So we got the essence there, but let's see if we can get a little bit better. Prahlad Maharaj said, one who is sufficiently intelligent should use the human form of life from the very beginning of life, or in other words, from the tender age of childhood, to practice devotional activities or service, practice the activities of devotional service, giving up all their engagements. That's pretty good. So from the very beginning of life, Prahlad Maharaj says that we should give up all their engagements and practice the activities of devotional service, especially those who are sufficiently intelligent. So Prahlad Maharaj said that those who are sufficiently intelligent to utilize the human form of life for in the very beginning of life, or in other words, from the tender age of childhood, to practice the activities of devotional service, giving up all their engagements. So, Kaumara, Acharat, Pragyo, Dharman, Bhagavatan, Iha. So then the Sanskrit makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? And then they reinforce each other. The Sanskrit and the translation, they can reinforce each other. And now the next thing is, because the first concept is there, Kaumara, Acharat, Pragyo, Dharman, Bhagavatan, Iha, Durlabham, Manusha, Janma. So now the concept, obviously, something will be thrown in there about how the human form of life is very rare, difficult to obtain. Durlabham, Manusha, Janma, Tad Apyadruvam Artadam. But still, it has great meaning. It can be utilized for something very valuable. So the next translation, the human body is most rarely achieved. And although temporary like other bodies, it is meaningful because in human life, one can perform devotional service. So why is the human form of life valuable, Karimuni?
Because even though it's temporary, we could use it to perform devotional service.
Yeah, so that's great value of having the human body, because this is practically the only form that it's at least easy to perform devotional service. It's not, if someone offers a candle to Radha Kalachandri, it's not going to make the newspapers. But if a cat came in here and offered a candle to Radha Kalachandra, it would probably could make the newspapers, right? Especially if he sang the Dhammarastika prayers. So it's not unusual for a human being to have that capacity, but it would be quite unusual if a cat or a dog did it. Even a slight amount of sincere devotional service give one complete perfection. So Prabhupada throws in a few things in there once in a while, just to clarify some of the points. So who can say what at least the first line is, Bhakti Ras? What was the first concept, even if we can't remember all the details? Who's speaking? And what is he saying about those who are pragya, those who are sufficiently intelligent?
This human form of life, practice devotional service.
When should they do it? Or when should they start? What's that? When in childhood?
4 or 5.
Yeah, from the very beginning. As soon as that should be education, Prahlad Maharaja is saying. Not that we go to school for 20 years, we get our degree, and then we can take up devotional service. Spend the rest of our life trying to forget all the nonsense we learned in school, trying to hear something valuable. So, Prahlad Maharaja said, from the very beginning of life, those who are sufficiently intelligent should utilize this human form of life from the very beginning of life, from the tender age of childhood, in other words, from the very beginning of life, to practice devotional service, giving up all other engagements. And then what does he say? What's the next thing? That the human form of life is what?
Very rarely attained.
Yes. It's rarely attained, and what else? Although it's temporary, what's the value of it? Why is it meaningful? Yes.
Use it to perform devotional service.
Yes. And what's the value? What is the unique thing about devotional service compared to material activities that Prabhupada mentions? Yes.
Even a slight amount of devotional service
Can give one what?
will help us.
Perfection.
Complete perfection. Sincere devotional service. So if our devotional service is really sincere, it can give us complete perfection. So we're trying to develop our sincerity. So purport. Notice that as we go over this, some of the clouds in our brains, some of the cobwebs start clearing away. We actually start trying to pay a little attention to what's going on. Then, it's a self-testing, because although I'm doing it externally, actually we should be doing it internally. What was said, what was actually said. And then when we see the state of our consciousness, maybe we get discouraged sometimes, but we should just struggle until we actually get it. I mean, if we're doing this at home, just like if I was trying to memorize it, first thing I'd just take the simplest thing you could possibly do, like the first letter of the sentence. We can't remember anything else. What's the first letter in the sentence without looking at it, Kardama Muni? What's the first?
Yes.
What's the first letter?
Should be.
What's that?
Yes, sir.
P, yes. What's the first word?
Prahlad.
Yes, Prahlad. And then the next word?
Maharaj said.
Yeah, so that's all we have to do. We just have to see if I can get that much and then to repeat it. Prahlad Maharaj said. Then we memorized something. It's not like, although there's a few other words in the translation, but at least we got the first ones down. So then we go on to the next word. Prahlad Maharaj said, what's the next word?
One is sufficiently intelligent.
Yes. So then we get the next one. When? The next one who is sufficiently intelligent. So then one, and we have it. Prahlad Maharaj said, one who is sufficiently intelligent And that way we work on it. And then if we can't remember what the next thing is, then we can look at it. Prahlada Maharaja said, one who is sufficiently intelligent, what's the next word?
Should practice from the very beginning of life, namely.
Oh, should use the human form of life from the very beginning.
Human form of body.
Body, yes, so that's it. I didn't get it either. To use the human form of body from the very beginning of life, or in other words, from the tender age of childhood, to practice devotional service, giving up all the activities of devotional service, giving up all their engagements. Is that right?
Yeah.
Did I leave something out, Prajapati?
To practice the activities of devotional service.
Yeah, practice the activities. So that way we can see, and then we fill in the gaps. So the next time we go over it, it should be a little bit better. Prahlada Maharaja said, one who is sufficiently intelligent should use the valuable human form of life from the very beginning of life, in other words, from the tender age of childhood, to practice devotional service, giving up all other engagements. You should use the human form of body, should use it from the very beginning of life, in other words, from the tender age of childhood, to practice the activities of devotional service, giving up all their engagements. Then we go over it and go over it till we finally get that down. Then when we have that down, then we can spend some time meditating on it. What does it actually mean? Seeing Prahlad Maharaj instructing his schoolmates that one who is sufficiently intelligent, and then we can remember something about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It says in the Bhagavatam that those who have some brains, medasa, that they'll practice devotional, they'll chant Hare Krishna. Remember that? Krishna Varnam Tvisa Krishna Sango Pangasya Parashadam Jagnai Sankirtana Prayara Yanti Hi Sumedasa. Sumedasa, those who have good brain substance. So then so Prahlad Maharaj is saying the same thing, isn't he? That those who are sufficiently intelligent. And how do people get rid of their brain substance? Why do they lose their brain substance?
Not using it.
Not using it? Yes, usually that's a major factor. And what's the other thing? Yes.
Breaking the core.
Yeah, those are big sources of losing your brain substance. So those who are too sinful, those who are deceitful, those who are atheistic, and those who are foolish, it's very difficult for them, Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, to practice devotional service. So for different reasons, one may not be sufficiently intelligent. But what is this intelligence? The intelligence to build an atomic weapon? What's the basis of this intelligence? What's the beginning of this intelligence? To understand the difference between matter and spirit. Isn't that right? That I'm actually a spirit soul trapped in matter, and my purpose in life is to get out of the material elements, to liberate myself from the material elements, ultimately to go back to the spiritual kingdom from which that will make me happy. So that's intelligent. And one who's become a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, that may be a kind of intelligence, material intelligence, but it doesn't help them liberate themselves from the bodily concept of life. Just by becoming a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, it's not a asset for liberation. It's not necessary, at least. Maybe the sign of material intelligence, but an ordinary person who understands the difference between matter and spirit, at least in theory, and tries to apply it within their lives, according to Prahlad Maharaj, they're much more intelligent. They're actually going to get something valuable and permanent. And then, so we have more or less something about the first. So we can go over that again and again until we actually get it down, and then what will happen is the more we concentrate on it, it may help us remember other conceptions that we've remembered. So the purport. Should be able to get through the purport today. Purport. The whole purpose of Vedic civilization and of reading the Vedas is to attain the perfect stage of devotional service in the human form of life. I'll read that again for those who haven't heard, slowly. The whole purpose of Vedic civilization and of reading the Vedas is to attain the perfect stage of devotional service in the human form of life. A little bit different now, right? If I read it again, maybe we'll get it even more. The whole purpose of Vedic civilization and of reading the Vedas is to attain the perfect stage of devotional service in the human form of life. So what did I just read?
The whole purpose of Vedic civilization and reading the Vedas is to attain perfection, the perfectional stage of the human form of life.
Which is?
Devotional service.
Yeah, devotional service. Yeah. So the whole purpose of Vedic civilization, so just imagine all the varieties of Vedic civilization, the demigod worshippers, the impersonalists, the mystic yogis. So the whole purpose of this Vedic civilization, washing your hands before you eat, learning Ayurvedas, keep the body healthy and strong. So the whole purpose of this Vedic civilization and of reading the Vedas, gaining the knowledge so we can actually apply the Vedic civilization in our own lives. Because whether we apply it or not, there is a Vedic civilization. We have to read it to find out what the Vedic civilization is all about. Is to obtain what? Devotional service. The perfect stage of devotional service. The perfect state, not just devotional service mixed with material motivation or mental speculation, but to obtain the perfect state of devotional service which is possible in the human form of life. According to the Vedic system, now we're talking about a system, therefore, from the very beginning of life, the brahmacharya system is introduced so that from one's very childhood, from the age of 5 years, one can practice modifying one's human activities so as to engage perfectly in devotional service. So that's dharma, to learn how to modify our necessities of life, economic development, and our necessities to gratify the senses so we can ultimately get liberation, free from the bodily concept of life. We're taught how to modify our activities so they become spiritualized. So the brahmacharya system. So brahmacharya system doesn't mean just celibacy. It also means there's a whole system. Not that I'm a brahmachari just because I'm celibate. But no, there's a whole system of training. What is the verse from the 7th canto? Anyone know that? About brahmachari? Brahmachari guru kule. What else? Vasandanta gurur hitam. What does that mean? Brahmachari guru kule. The brahmacharis, they're supposed to go to the Gurukul. Brahmachari guru kule vasan, and live there, vasandanta, and they learn how to control their senses and their mind. Gurur hitam. And they're supposed to be favorable towards their teacher. Not that, who is this guy, who does he think he is, lording it over all these little kids. Maybe he wants to molest them, who knows, what's going on. No, they're supposed to be favorable. Watch out for these teachers, especially the ones who give you lollipops all the time. Vasandanta gurur hitam achavan vasavan nicho. I think I got that wrong. Actually, luckily it's in here. No, that's in the 7th canto. We have the 7th canto. Brahmachari guru kule vasandanta gurur hitam achavan vasavan nicho. I got that wrong. Twelve, 1, 2. So Narada Muni is going to preach about this again. Vasandanta gurur hitam acharan. Oh, you got it right. I'm surprised. Acharan dasavan nicho. So they should be acharan, just like the word here, acharan. They should practice what? Dasavan, becoming a servant, just like a servant. Nicho, humble servant. Not that, I started as a humble servant, but as I progressed, I became the temple, I got initiated, I got second initiated, I became the temple commander, the head pujari, the temple president. How could I possibly be humble? Because all these things are honors are being bestowed on me. I must be special. It's hard when you're exalted to be too humble. Although, because I'm trying to be humble, therefore I'm even more exalted in my exalted state. Since I'm trying to be humble, that's just adding on to more of my exalted state. It's another feather in my cap. Nicho, guru, surida, surida. So with great determination and in vow, and one should, with great feeling, favorable feelings towards the guru, one should execute one's service. So that's brahmachari life. Not that I'm celibate, but I'm looking around for, the proper mate. Hi, I'm a brahmachari. I know you always wanted a brahmachari, right? No, there's more to the brahmachari system than that. One has to develop the proper consciousness. Otherwise, one won't stay brahmachari for very long. So I think we're actually going to stop here and we'll continue on tomorrow. Any questions? Yes?
It was mentioned that even a slight amount of sincere devotional service can give one complete perfection. And then we've seen people sometimes do large amounts of sincere devotional service and reach complete perfection. So how does that work, that one can reach that with a slight amount?
Well, anyone who actually renders completely sincere devotional service will reach complete perfection. Therefore, however sincerity they actually had, and Krishna knows how sincere they really are, therefore they've gotten that much perfection. Now, with our imperfect understanding of things, we may judge someone as being sincere to a larger extent than they may be sincere. And we may judge others to be insincere, well, they may be much more sincere than we actually imagine. But the ultimate judge is the supersoul in the heart. Tesham sadatam yuktanam, bhajantam pritipurvakam, dadami buddhi yogam tam, yena mamupiyantite. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give them the understanding by which they come to me. So the sincerity is manifested by how enthusiastic and how consistent they are trying to serve Krishna under the directions of the superior authorities. And then as they do that, then Krishna gives them more and more intelligence to do it. And then, Tesham eva nukamparta mahama jnana jam tamaha nasham yam yatma bhavashto jnana dipena bhashvata. Then Krishna purifies their heart and illuminates them from within. He reveals himself from within when he actually sees that they're really sincere. That he's given them knowledge, he's given them intelligence, he's given them service, he's given them so many things, and when they utilize it all very nicely, then he enlightens them within their heart. He reveals himself. Therefore it says, Tad buddhiyas tadatmanas tanishtas tad parayanaha gachanya punarabritim jnana niduta kalmashaha. When one's faith, mind, refuge, and intelligence are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed by complete knowledge and thus proceeds straight on the path of self-realization. So sometimes we see someone's engaging part of their being in Krishna's service, and we take that as complete sincerity. But Krishna wants everything: faith, mind, refuge, intelligence, everything to be invested in him. Then they proceed straight on the path to self-realization. Anything else? So,
Just a little addendum from the last thing you're saying. The Lord reveals to Durvasa Muni, after being chased around by the Sudarshan Chakra in the pastime with Ambarish Maharaj, that the pure devotee has me in his heart, knows nothing but me, and I also have him in my heart and know nothing but my pure devotees.
Yeah.
So that is the perfection.
So we'll continue on tomorrow, hopefully. No, I won't be here tomorrow, will I? For class. What's that? Or radius. Oh, we'll be back on Sunday. Anyhow, we'll somehow or another take up where we left off. So thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.